That's Nick.
And that's Joseph, and today we're here to talk about The Surrogate, the directorial debut of Jeremy Hersh, which would have premiered at the 2020 South by Southwest Film Festival, which of course didn't happen because of COVID-19, but it will be available on digital and demand June 12th, 2020, courtesy of Monument Releasing.
I really like this movie.
Yeah, to me,
it's a great conversation piece.
It is, and to me, this is one of those things, one of those films that is a very welcome reminder of why I perused so many films in the first place.
Oh boy. Well, we're going to do this in under 10 minutes, so I'll try to describe the story.
Okay.
So a woman decides to be the surrogate for her best friend, her gay best friend, and his significant other. Mm-hmm. But things take a turn when, after doing genetic testing,
after 12 weeks,
they realize that her baby will have Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has the chromosome. The baby has the chromosome
for trisomy 23, which is Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So they have to decide whether or not they want to keep the child. So it stars Jess, who's played by
Jasmine. So almost everybody has been in television before. Most people are making their debuts here, but Jasmine Batchelor, who's phenomenal as the lead, is Jess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to start, I think the two strongest components are the characterizations and the actual story, because it's just ripe with conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of subtext in there. But yeah, she plays kind of this perfect, she has like an Ivy League education. She has a great job, like as a web developer or web designer for, which she says is just basically like social media for a pretty like significant nonprofit, but she's unhappy there.
That's geared towards creating opportunities for imprisoned women.
Sure. Her two friends, her gay best friend and his partner, the one is a lawyer, and I'm not sure what the other one does.
Josh, the one who's her friend from college.
But they live in New York City. They're like upper middle class. They sort of like they very well represent like a class of gay men who seem to have everything going for them. So the next step is, let's make a baby. But it's clear that they haven't thought it all the way through. Yeah,
certain questions haven't been asked.
Because when they're confronted with the baby's genetic disorder, it's written all over their faces that they're like, chuck it down the incinerator. But she is not so quick. Like, you can tell that like the wind is taken out of her sail. So they propose to go spend some time with children with Down syndrome, because in her mind, she's thinking that'll give them some insight as to what it will be like.
That it's just fine, it's okay, it's doable, it's manageable.
Immediately, she connects with the children, but the two gentlemen don't.
Yeah, it's clear from the get-go that they are not feeling any of it.
And, it's not predictable.
No.
But, it is in the sense that obviously there needs to be a decision made. And what that decision will be, But I think watching her evolve with this is so fascinating. And it just seems her characterization was so good, because she seems like the Pollyanna type who just wants to like...
Well, she's this young, affluent black woman who's been raised with all the things. And like one of my favorite scenes, I know you didn't like the scene as much, but her mother's a dean at Yale. And... First of all, her mother was kind of the last one to know that she was going to be a surrogate for, her gay best friends. And then to find out that her daughter plans on keeping this baby and would like $100,000 out of her trust to buy a home to set her life up to take care of this child alone.
It is a very effective scene when her mother sort of takes her to task about how this makes no sense, that she's not being practical, and doesn't think that she should keep the child. Yeah.
Because in Jess's mind, one of the things, because we have this technology to find this out, it's not far removed from eugenics.
She's likening it to eugenics, and that's a very interesting conversation. Just the idea of genetic testing, because Jess proposes that we don't know what this child's capability will be. So a lot of very interesting topics. Things come to a head when her friends tell her, we don't want this baby.
Yeah.
And she goes through the cycle of like, well, if I keep it, I might sue you, or I might ask for child support, and things become tenuous. She develops a relationship with one, so the sort of the group, the organization that they went to initially visit,
the community center
to visit the children with Down syndrome, just develops like a friendship with one of the women, Bridget, who I also thought her characterization was very good, because she's like an upper middle class woman who clearly had this kid later in life. She's affluent, she can afford all the things, has this kid, she's clearly tired, stressed out over it. Repeatedly tells Jess, like, I don't have the energy to deal with you and your questions. But she does. I think that relationship has a lot of subtext, and
well, I like that it is it's a film that is about a particular scenario, but it's also about this woman's characterization and the way that melds together. Because there's really not a spare minute, especially if you think of the second half, because it's really switching from one. She goes from boom, 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 having one conversation with one after the other people. She's trying to get answers that no one can answer to questions no one can answer for her.
Right.
As in, what should I do?
What should I do? But everything everyone says to her kind of rubs her the wrong way. Yeah. She has a scene where she's walking by a restaurant and she notices that they don't have a ramp to allow people in wheelchairs access. And she goes in on a rant about like ADA and all those things, which are important. But clearly she's on a mission to be an advocate. Yeah. So that begs the question, like, are you only considering having this child like out of principle or to make spite. A statement or spite? Just so interesting. Yeah. And ultimately she decides not to have the child, so she decides to have an abortion.
And why she gets there is almost equally out of it is very grueling. Like what the
final scene is she's sort of cut off communication with the two guys, but they end up showing up at her sister's house where she's decided to sort of stay, and they confront her. It gets a little heated. She's being very difficult, very frustrating, but I thought very well played. It felt very real, just her being kind of smug and like decisive. But Josh says, like, I will always be a part of this kid's life, basically. And she kind of comes to the realization that that's true. Because she kind of threatens them with like, I don't want you involved. But I think it's, like you said, that grueling scene where she decides like, this is not the right thing to do. Like I'm cutting off my nose to spite my face because I'm going to have this kid, but not let the kid have a dad. And, very, very interesting. And, I don't think it's important to inject our own beliefs. I just think it's just such an interesting story to watch.
It is. And the intersections of all kinds of things.
So many things.
Sexual orientation. And like these affluent gay men, interracial gay couple that wants a designer baby, basically is what it seems like. Yeah. And his, Josh's speech about why as gay men they feel so particular about not having this child. Just everything is so well executed. Like there's not any fat.
I would recommend watching this film with a group of people who are good at having conversations with some wine and just talk about it. I think it's fascinating. Great storytelling. It's very efficient.
That scene where right before she goes to her sister's and that white woman getting off the train.
Oh, there's a very good scene where Jess is getting off of a train, waiting for her sister to pick her up, and this older woman who knows Jess's mom, says like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in so long. What are you up to? Oh, I'm pregnant. Oh, I didn't know you got married. I'm not married. Oh, well." This poor woman keeps putting her foot in her mouth, making all of these assumptions, and it was so good.
It's a film about all of these people making assumptions, even from the beginning when they're celebrating the pregnancy, and the waitress, because of the two
the server
the two black people thinks they're a couple, and then she doesn't.
No, she thinks they're brother and sister.
Oh yes, and just all because of how they look to people that don't know them, and all the assumptions people just make.
My final comment is I often complain about films that seem like, oh, the two writers or the writer and the director are friends and they were drunk or high one night and came up with this stupid idea and decided to make a movie. And this is the opposite example. This is to me someone who had a really great idea for something that you could just really sink your teeth into. So for that, I think this movie is really good.
I brought up that scene with the old white lady because that actress is Catherine Curtin, who played Issa Rae's boss on Insecure.
That's right. That's right.
Also, is very reminiscent. I know. Hold on, though. I wanted to bring up this is also like that play Twilight of the Golds, which was made into, I believe it was for television film, starring Faye Dunaway, and Gary Marshall and Brendan Fraser and Jennifer Beals. About Brendan Fraser's the gay son, Jennifer Beals' sister is pregnant. They find out, hey, this kid's gonna be gay, and everybody decides that they don't want it, and except for Jennifer Beals and the problems that cause. It reminded me of that, which is still a very hypothetical situation, thank God, but also how eugenics comes into play, and where do we draw the line? And as Jess's mother in this film says, Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, which was a very good line.
Yes. Anyway, what do you give this film?
I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I give it 4 out of 5 stars.
I agree with that too.
And Jasmine Batchelor, this film might end up being too small for there to be any real awards campaigning, but goddamn, at least an Indie Spirit Awards campaign, she's excellent.
She's very good in it. All right, bye.
Bye.